I am Danny Saggese, the Director of Marketing for the Virginia Foundation for Healthy Youth, and it's an honor and privilege to be invited to present to you today. Joining me here will be Judy Hou, who's a youth activist for Y-Ster, which is our youth-led advocacy movement in Virginia, and Jeff Jordan, representing the Rescue Social Change Group, who's been a partner of the Virginia Foundation for Healthy Youth for 8 years now. A little background on the Virginia Foundation for Healthy Youth. We were created as a result of the Master Settlement Agreement and initially called the Virginia Tobacco Settlement Foundation. We're provided 10% of Virginia's allocation of the MSA payment. In about 8 years, that resulted in us lowering tobacco rates in Virginia by about half for youth prevalence. So we're pretty proud of that. And we did such a decent job that the Secretary of Health decided that we should take on childhood obesity as well, which resulted in our name change to the Virginia Foundation for Healthy Youth. Also resulted in a 25% reduction in our budget, but we still proudly fight the two leading causes of preventable death in Virginia and in the nation. A great deal of our success, we feel like, is owed to the comprehensive approach that the foundation has taken to fighting tobacco use amongst youth, which is our primary mission. Part of that comprehensive approach has been a multimedia marketing campaign, which I am responsible for, and a big portion of that has been the youth advocacy movement. And that is what we call Y-Ster. That began in 2004, but it didn't initially begin as it is now, in that it's taken a lot of time and effort, study of best practices, trial and error, to really learn how to create a true youth-led advocacy movement. And we feel like we have one of the nation's premier youth-led advocacy movements. Of course, I'm a bit biased in that opinion, but the accolades and some of the things that our youth have achieved, I think, speak for themselves. Over the time since it's been created, we've trained over 6,000 high school-aged youth. We typically have anywhere from 800 to 1,000 active at any one time, which is typically over the school year. Some of our past campaigns, and really the way a campaign is launched is simply presenting some of the issues that are relevant or timely to our youth, to our leadership team primarily, and letting them provide us feedback on something that they might be passionate about, something that intrigues them or interests them. Some of the things in the past that they worked on is completing a survey throughout Virginia about the interest in tobacco clean indoor air legislation, which did not exist in Virginia until recently. A campaign educating the public about the proliferation of smoking in movies. An online campaign helping convince Kelly Clarkson to not take tobacco advertising sponsorship for one of her Indonesian tours, and even a campaign to assess the relevance and the effectiveness of the tobacco pack warnings, which is on Y-Ster's behalf. We actually submitted to the FDA docket for that recently. And that is how the campaign for what we call Meltdown came to be. And not quite 3 years ago, we presented to the youth these new products that were on the market. And immediately there was significant interest on their part in that these products could potentially be confused, particularly by youth, because of their packaging and because of their flavoring. And their hypothesis was born quite quickly, in that they simply wanted to find out whether or not, because of the flavoring and because of the packaging, could they be confusing. And so what we do is take their passion for a particular issue and then try and give them all the resources they need to answer the question they're after, or to complete projects in support of the campaign. And so this campaign, again called Meltdown, had two primary purposes: assessing, again, the public perception, the public opinion about what they thought these products were, and then education, which is a big part of, usually a big part of any campaign we conduct, and training the youth to hand out the surveys. And these are surveys that were collected exclusively by high school aged youth, except for the online survey. We would train them to hopefully eliminate some of the answering bias by having them not mention what these products were, simply saying they were new products they were trying to find opinions on, not mention tobacco, not mention that they worked in tobacco or anything like that, to hopefully get as unbiased answers as from the public as we could. And then they would explain the campaign and the mission afterwards. However, this is despite its scope and its diversity, this is a gigantic sample of convenience. Here is the survey itself. I think it was a 6 inch by 4 inch card that the youth would literally hand out to the public. On the left-hand side there is the front, which focuses on the packaging. And the question, it's difficult to see, and I have to apologize because the slides here are slightly out of order of what you have printed. I want to thank Karen and the group here for being so gracious as to take our last-minute change in what you have. So my apologies there. But what you have there is, the question is, what product do you think is in this package? And that's an open-ended question there. And then, would you try it, or would your friends try it? And as you can see, we had 3 of the newer tobacco products on the market at the time, and then 3 either candy or gum products. On the back side is where we dealt with the flavoring issue, using the flavors of Frost, Wintergreen, Java, and again asking them, what product do you think this is? Would you try it, and would your friends try it? And so what were they able to achieve? Over the time period of data collection, we were pretty astounded. Over 8,000 valid surveys were collected, and in over 200 communities across Virginia. And so we were, despite it being a sample convenience, pretty impressed and pretty amazed by the findings as well. And so to get into that, I should turn it over to Judy, since her and her colleagues did all of the collection. Let her explain some of that to you.
Hi, my name is Judy Hou, and I have been a Y-Ster Youth Advocate since my freshman year, so since 2008, and I will be going to Princeton University this fall. So I would like to say that Meltdown, first of all, has been a really huge part of my Y-Ster experience. I've personally collected around 260 surveys, and I would just like to talk about the major findings that we got from these results. So first of all, Meltdown sought to look at how the packaging itself would affect the perceptions of the public. And we examined 3 different products. Over here you can see Snooze Mellow, Snooze Orbs, and Stonewall Natural. So what we did was we went into our community and we talked to not only youth but also to adults. So we asked them, based on the packaging alone, what did they think was inside of this product? As Danny mentioned before, we tried to make this as unbiased as possible, so we didn't give them any of our own opinions beforehand. And what we found was really surprising. We had 23 of our respondents say that, based on the packaging alone, they thought snus contained inside a product associated with candy, mints, or gum, so nothing with tobacco. And additionally, 37% of our respondents thought that Camel Orbs was associated with candy, mints, or gum based on the packaging alone. And around 1/3 of our respondents said that, looking at the packaging of Stonewall Natural, that they thought it was associated with candy, mints, or gum. So in addition to looking at the packaging itself, we also wanted to see how the specific flavorings affected the perceptions of the public. So the 3 flavors that we examined, they were Frost, Wintergreen, and Java. And what we found was definitely very alarming. I would say, looking at the stats, they're very surprising. Around 1/2 of all of our respondents, when looking at the flavor frost, they did not associate it with tobacco, but rather they associated with something that was completely harmless, such as candy, mint, or gum. 83% of our respondents, when looking at Wintergreen, thought that it was associated with candy, mint, or gum. And only 14% when seeing the flavor Java thought it was candy, mint, or gum. But it's important to take into account that 64% of our respondents associated it with a beverage such as coffee, which, as we're well aware of, is not tobacco. Now, because Meltdown is looking specifically also at how the tobacco marketing is targeting teenagers, we did a separate and individual analysis of people under the age of 18, and the results we found were very similar to the full sample, with 23% of minors who responded saying that looking at the snus packaging alone, they thought it was associated with candy, mint, or gum, not tobacco. 35% of those who saw the Orbs packaging thought it was associated with candy, mint, or gum, and once again, around 1/3 of our respondents looking at Stonewall, who were under the age of 18, believed it was a candy, mint, or gum. And so on to, similarly, like I mentioned before, looking at people under the age of 18, we also analyzed how they perceive certain flavors, Frost, Wintergreen, and Java once again. And 1/2 of people who perceived Frost thought that it had to do with candy, mint, or gum, not tobacco. 83%, once again, the astounding number, had thought that Wintergreen had to do with candy, mint, or gum, and then 13% for Java, with the 64% on the side. And personally, I think that this is something that should cause a lot of concern because these tobacco products are not being immediately recognized as such. They're being seen as something that's completely harmless, and that might lead people to be more inclined to try these products, which is what we looked at next. So in addition to how the public perceive these products, we also examined whether or not the public would act upon the perception. So looking at people under the age of 18, we asked them, based on the packaging alone, would they be inclined to try these products? So looking at Camel Orbs, we found that 23% of all of our minor respondents said that yes, based on the packaging alone, they would be inclined to try the product. And even more alarming, 21% of non-tobacco users said that based on the packaging, they would be willing to try this product for the first time. And in addition to seeing whether people would try it themselves, we also asked how they thought their peers would perceive these products, whether or not it would make them inclined to try it. And we found that around 1/3 of our respondents said that yes, based on the packaging, they think their peers would be inclined to try this. And I personally, in my youth advocacy work, when talking to a lot of my peers, I know that they've been extremely surprised with the way that these tobacco products are marketed, especially Camel Orbs, because I think that they look a whole lot like the Tic Tacs. If you look at the colors, they're very similar in terms of the green, and also if you look at the leaf, it's actually the same logo as the Tic Tac, just flipped horizontally. And in addition, if you examine the actual pellets inside, they're very round, they're small, they're similar to Tic Tacs. So we did the same thing for Snus Mellow, and we found that 17% of our respondents said that based on the packaging alone, they would try this tobacco product, with 14% of those being non-tobacco users. And then same thing with Stonewall, 18% said that based on the packaging alone, they would be willing to try it, and 16% of those were non-tobacco users, and around 1/3 of our respondents said that they felt that their friends would also be inclined to try this product based on packaging. So with the Meltdown campaign, when it was first launched, even we as youth advocates, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Y-Ster leadership team, we were extremely surprised that these type of products existed, and we were also surprised that they were being marketed towards teens in this fashion. And I've heard the same sentiments echoed by people from around my community. I've talked to school teachers, my peers, even just like people in the community as well as parents. They've all been surprised that these tobacco products are being marketed in this fashion. So what we tried to do with the Meltdown campaign is, in addition to providing just raw data through the surveys, we also wanted to generate public awareness. So we did this through a variety of ways. If you look at the picture on the top left, that's me talking to media outlets, so local TV stations. We've also given newspaper interviews as well as radio interviews, just trying to generate as much awareness as possible. And another really fun thing that we as Y-Ster members do is we have our team, the youth, actually plan as well as execute project days. So if you look around, we have a lot of different Y-Ster members planning these project days, getting out into their community, and having these community events. So some of these events are really fun. There's such events such as sports events. We've hosted dances. We've even hosted a fashion show. So it's just a really great way for us to get our community involved while getting these surveys filled out and also generating public awareness at the same time and educating them. And with that, I will let Jeff take it away.
All right. Thank you, Judy. It's impressive, right? No wonder she's going to Princeton next year. Rescue Social Change Group is a social marketing organization that developed and manages Y-Ster. And just to, Judy gave you a lot of facts. So the 4 key points from the data that we found was that 35% of teens thought that Camel Orbs were candy, mint, or gum. 83% thought that Wintergreen was associated with candy, mint, or gum. 53% thought that frost was associated with candy, mint, or gum. You see another big portion was associated there with beverages. Remember that on the survey, these were all open-ended questions. So it's whatever they answered, and most of them answered candy, mint, or gum, throwing in beverages for an even larger majority. And then finally, that 23% of teens would try Camel Orbs based on its packaging. This is of all teens. If we looked at just teens who were not current tobacco users, it was 21% who said that they would try it based on its packaging. Now, it's important to recognize the limitations of the study. This was not designed to be a scientific study. It was designed to be a project that youth can execute and manage on their own. So it is a convenience sample, albeit a huge convenience sample of over 8,000 adults and youth in Virginia from over 210 communities. So definitely we have to, treat it as such, and hopefully the diversity and size of the sample gives us a little bit more confidence, but nonetheless it is still a convenience sample. Like Danny bragged at the beginning that Y-Ster is a great organization, and some of the evidence of that is that the Y-Ster model has been replicated in other states. So the same model is also being implemented in New Mexico, Nevada, and St. Louis. And New Mexico actually borrowed the Meltdown Campaign from Virginia, and its youth in New Mexico implemented the same campaign with the same process, the same survey, to understand New Mexicans' opinions of these new tobacco products. So here we have almost 6,000 surveys, in addition to the 8,000 that we're talking about that were completed by New Mexico youth. And we found similar results. So about 39% of New Mexicans believed that Camel Orbs were candy, mint, or gum. About 80% of them thought that Wintergreen was actually associated with candy, mint, or gum. Another 48% of them thought that frost was associated with candy, mint, or gum. And here we had a slightly larger group. 26% of teens said that they would try Camel Orbs based on their packaging alone. And if we looked at just non-tobacco using teens, that went down to about 23%. That said they would try these products based on their packaging alone. So again, it's another convenience sample, but now we're talking about close to 14,000 surveys from youth and adults that are giving us similar results on their impression of the new tobacco products. Now we know that the packaging for Camel has changed, but when this study was implemented, it had not changed yet. So right now, the youth are working on other projects, so that's why we have not yet done a survey with the new packaging. So in closing, the public, especially youth, associate the flavors and packaging of dissolvable tobacco products with that of candy, mint, or gum, and it's something that we think should be looked into and addressed. And we're happy to take any questions now.